Hello and welcome to the lecture. So let's continue with more on the Oracle APIX APIs, and now we'll see about the apex.page. So before going to this API, so let me go to this official Oracle APIX website, which is apex.oracle.com, and going to the bottom under this option with the documentation. Here you can find all the APIs of the Oracle APIX with respect to JavaScript. So here you can find for this latest Oracle APIX version for now. Here you can get the JavaScript API reference, and here we'll be getting all these APIX APIs. So we saw about the apex.message in the previous lecture. So all these are covered here with examples on that, and for real time you can refer that in the previous lecture which I demonstrated, and these are some some examples of some things which we never used also can be covered. And now we'll see about the apex.page, and we have not seen anything on the apex.page, but we have seen few here over this, and like apex.server.process, apex.item. You can refer that for more examples, and now we'll just go with this practical example over this apex.page, and here most of them will be useful. And we'll start with apex.page.submit. So submit will start, and you'll be familiar with that when we are using the submit page action. Going to this one, so we have a model dialog already here, right? So when we open the model over here, which we have implemented edit in form, so this would update the data. So if you have remembered that, so we are updating this, and we have used this kind of an action here. So we will revert these things, and we will just add some new ways we can, like submitting with this update. So submitting with this update, I'm telling. So we are gonna show this in a different way. So like if you're editing this in form, or let's say we can open this one, this would be a better one to show it. So we have this, right? So where we are editing and updating the names and what we want, right? So we will make use of this update action, which is submitting, and we will customize on our own submit what we want. So it's just closing it every time, and we can customize in our own way now in this lecture. So going to this page, we will go to the page 3, that is the one which is the model. So here we have some DML operations that is triggered every time when we click on this update, right? So we have this update button that has the action as the submit page, but we can customize in our own, like based on some setting we can only submit it, not every time, because this is behaving like whenever we click it will submit it, and it will run this process every time. So we don't want that, and we do have some before submit. We will remove this, that is annoying at times, right, with alert. So we'll just delete this, and yeah, so we will just come back here to this button. So here we have this action, right? So we just make it to define by dynamic action. So now if I save this and gonna see that in open model, so nothing will be done from here because this is defined by dynamic action. So what we are gonna do is we are gonna use this apex.page.submit. So here we have this example, and we need not pass any parameter for the first time. So I will explain what parameters we need to pass. So it's about that. So we'll just put apex.page.submit over here, and also we can do in another way, I will tell. So if we are creating a dynamic action, like submit page, we have a dynamic action option like a submit page over this action. You can also do that in our case, but it's about adding a client-side condition here if you want over this. Yeah, so if you want a condition, then only submit it. but basically we can go with this, execute server side code instead of this submit page here navigation. So we'll just go with the JavaScript code because we can add more logic over there, and we can submit whenever we want by adding a lot of if conditions, like, and so and so, and even with respect to some requests, because basically an apex.submit, right? So this has almost the same. We have these two things, but still we have a lot of options over this in our apex.page.submit. So here we have, right, we can pass this objects over this apex.page.submit like this and receive that now here. So this is about that. So I would prefer going with the JavaScript here, and we'll just put apex.page.submit for now just to check it. So we are putting apex.page.submit, and let me save it. So this is about that, and if I open the model, and it will be saving as well. So we'll just remove these things as well, so it's also annoying. So in the page 2 it is added, so we'll just go to the page 2, and it is added in the dialog closed event. So here we have this dialog closed that is refreshing, and even this alert message. So we just remove this JavaScript part. We can refresh the IG, and we will delete that, and we'll save it. So now if we refresh, and now we can see we can just open the model, and that will update it, and it's working as expected, like submitting the page. And we have to add some things, right, like thing, right, when we are gonna open the page, we need not close the dialog every time in our case, because this process is executed and this is next one, and it has a parallel sequence. So this is success, and this will also be closing the dialog. So in our case, if we want, like, only we have to submit the page, or we wanna close the dialog only. So let us take a case we want to submit that page, but we don't wanna close the dialog. We can add a condition here, like, when we wanna open this page here and we don't want to close it, we can do that as well. So we don't want to close that, because this basically happens if this form process is done, then close the dialog. That's having a thing, right? So we can skip this close dialog by, not deleting it. We can skip this by adding a condition here. So that condition, we can make use of the request value. So as you see here, we have the parameter, right? This is a request one. So with the request value of delete, it will perform only that call. So it's about that. So it's about what you wanted to set in your ways, right? So if you want to set with respect to this form alone, and we did not need to call this close dialog, we can use that by using this server side condition. So you can use the button as well, but I'm not a fan of that, because button, we basically use only one. If we have many buttons and one button is doing one process, in that way you can do, but we have one button that updates and close the dialog. So I'm using the type one, which has a lot of options here. So I'm gonna select this request part, because we are basically dealing with the request side, right? So I'm putting request equal to value. So let's say we are using form DML, right? So we are basically update the form, right? So we can put like we are gonna update only. So for now it's DML, means it's everything, but we designed it in a way to update it. So maybe I'll just put it update for an example, and let me copy this, and just as an example mentioned here, you can put it as a parameter over this dynamic action which we have. So here I'm putting with the quotes that one. So now I can expect that so only this form will be called with respect to this submit call. So that's how I'm expecting. So let me refresh this, and let me open the online store, and I'll open this here. So let us update this to our one. to this value and now update it. So it's showing me here, and we do have a problem here with this, with the apex.page.submit. It's calling me this close dialog, and it has worked, but it is executing both for now. I'm not sure why that's happening, because basically this has at the level of update, right? So this is matching and it's working fine, but this is closed dialog, and its request should be in the opposite way. So we have to put the opposite side, maybe item not equal to, not request not equal to value. So if it's an update, so we will we will skip this. So you can understand, maybe from here, like form we are putting to equal to value, and close dialog we are putting not equal to value, so that we can get it. So now if I open here, so now if I add the store and update it, so now it's updated. So you can understand, right? So now it's not closing as we want, it's having that. So it's about that what we want to put the request. So request, if you are putting, and it will, you have to be careful, it will execute everything here, and if it's not having any request condition, it will execute those things as well. So better put request in every condition if you are using, and with that value you can achieve it. If you wanna do more in a way, you can add as a comma separator by using the contained in value that accepts like a comma separator, like an array. So you can do that as well. So this is about a basic about the apex.page.submit, and more onto this, you can add a few things as a as an object here. So let me put request as the update, and we'll put show wait, and we'll see what it does. So show wait is about adding some customized one, like a spinner. So basically we do have a spinner here when we click on update. So this is about the show wait. So we have a spinner we saw, right? So show wait is something that adds kind of like a overlay, so where you can't even interact with this, because a normal update has an interaction. Here we can change it. So adding a show wait is more useful for form submission, or where you're using apex.page.submit. So we will add as an object now. As you can see, I'm going here, and I'm opening the object, and I'm putting this as a request. It's showing me the options because this is Apex encoded editor, and I'll close this object to avoid the errors, and put comma here, and we will put show wait, and it's showing here. So by default it is false as mentioned in the documentation. So show wait, you can see with these options. So the show wait is it is false by default. Here it's mentioned, and we will put that over here as true. And now let's close this, and we do have other options if you want to add, like if you press enter it will submit, or if you want to reload the page on submit we can do, or if you want to ignore the change, if by default the browser will want our changes, right? And if you want to set some page items also, we can do like as seen in this example. So this is about more examples here. So I'm just gonna use which is more useful, and even the validations is useful. If you have any validations, you can check it and don't submit that, and that can also be done from here. So not gonna much deep dive here. It's about how you wanna use it in your application as well. So you can just run a walkthrough of this and get what it does. Going here, we'll check what we wanna see. So let me open this here, and we will now check it how the spinner will be coming. And now if I update, you can see some overlay here, right? So if I update again, you can see that I can't interact now. So this is about the show wait. It's very useful, right? So I can do, if it's a long process, it's very useful. It takes about 5 to 10 seconds or more. You can add this show wait and make sure that user doesn't interact and do something in the and press the button again or something. You can make use of the show wait. That's very useful, and even the request side as well. So these are main use cases about the apex.page.submit. And going to the next one, we have the is changed, and we do have to use the is changed because we are often hitting the server, right? So what I means is, so if you want to track the changes and want to submit the form only if there is a change, like you have seen in the interactive grid, we have the model level changes. But if you want at item level changes, we have apex.item.isChanged as well. But more specifically, we use the apex.page.isChanged because that will be submitting, and submission happens at the page level. So for that, we can make use of that before submitting. Like you can add it in the client side condition, or we can add it on top of this as well. So adding here, like maybe we'll just come back with an example in the console. So basically, if you wanna track this inspection on the model dialog, it will be happening throughout the page. So if you want to inspect well and want to see that, you have to inspect it and go to the console again. So this is a bit, we have to make sure that you inspect the model dialog alone. So I'm gonna put apex.page.isChanged. It's populating and it's false. False means there are no changes. So if I change something and now if I type, so it's coming me as true. So this is about that. So if I undo that, now if I put, it's false. So this is the tracking of the apex.isChanged. Is changed. So you can also use that in a page level as well. So for model, I'm just checking. So I'm gonna put this as the condition. So basically now what it's happening is, even though I didn't change, it's gonna call the process every time hitting the database. So that's causing some performance issues, and even a button that can take around 10 to 15 seconds to submit, and the process is running. So it's like a bit messed up, why you have to hit the server every time and cause it's slow time, right? And that's the thing. So we can add this condition here. So make sure that it is on the right side, right? So it's around braces here. So I'm using this, and let me format this, and we are using if it is true then only submit it. So it's about this condition. If it is true, then submit. If you want, you can add the else condition, like there are no changes here. So that kind of things you can add as well. So I'm gonna open this again, and if I update it, nothing will happen, but it's calling me the dynamic action. Yeah, that's because we didn't have any client side condition, but that's fine. This is with respect to debug things which won't populate in the production side. So now if I change it like some other value, and if I update, it's now submitting, right? So it's about that. So it's what we want with respect to the avoiding hitting the database to the server every time. So use this apex.page.isChanged. You can also use apex.item of that item name.isChanged. You can also use that. If I put basically I'm not sure of what this item name is. So this is p3 store id, right? So you can use this as well, apex.item of p3 store id, and this is returning okay dot is changed. So if I open, so it's returning me false. So if I use some value, and now if I put, it's coming me true on this item. So this is about at the item level, you can use that, but mostly for the submission we would prefer with the page level. And this is with respect to some other cases which we want, whether this item is changed and we want to do something, then in that case this will work. So it's about that, and we are done with the submission and the is changed. And now we have the confirm. So if you remember with the confirm which we have used in the apex.message, it's almost the same, except that it has, you know, a same as combine of submission as well as with the confirm from the message side. So basically the UI looks like a confirm from the apex.message, but the functionality happens like apex.submit. So what happens is it will show two buttons like the, you know, apex.confirm which we have implemented here in the support in the previous lecture. It will show two things, but and cancel works the same, it will close the dialog, but we have a control over here since we added as a separate callback there in the if condition as the else side. So this okay, we have a function, right? But in apex.page.confirm, this okay will works as the submit. So basically it's about adding what we want to add it to the submission side. So if you want, you can check this document and it has a clear explanation here. So I'm not gonna demonstrate that because this is almost the same, right? So we can use two parameters. The first parameter is the one which is mandatory, and here you can add the message which we want, and the second parameter is not the callback, it's about the request or the object here, like same as the submission. It's nothing changed, only you will have a own message and two buttons populating as a dialog, and the functionality is the same. If you press OK, it will submit. Cancel, do nothing. So it's about that. And next we have this, you know, validate. So this validate is about the, you know, with respect to the model. So if I go to the form, not the model, it's with respect to the form. So if I inspect and if you go over here, so if I gonna put this, you know, apex.item.node. If you remember this, we have used in the interactive grid. So node.custom validity. So now if I put some like message like error, so it is added but we can't see in the form, but in interactive grid it populates when the immediate second. So to use that thing, so we have to use apex.page.validate. So this will trigger that now. So whatever the message is added, it will be in the HTML level. So if we want to show it to the user, we have to use this in our way. So this is about the apex.page.validate. And next we have the apex.cancel unsaved changes. So maybe basically going here, so if I refresh, we are getting this pop-up, right? So this is always coming whenever we are gonna make a change. So if I change this to something, it will come. So this is coming from the browser side. If you want to cancel that, so basically now if I change, it used to come, right? So if I want to cancel, I can use the API cancel one on unsaved changes, and if I enter, since I have changed this, it will ignore that. So this is about that one which we have seen here. And next we have the one on unsaved changes. It works the opposite way. So if you have cancelled by in a case where you don't want to show, if you want to revert that, you can use one on unsaved changes. So it's like the opposite side. If you cancelled it, now you can use that. So if I cancel that, it won't show me anything, right? So I mean I haven't cancelled. So if I wanna come back again, so if I put cancel one on unsaved changes, it is gonna be showing that, right? So if I put one on unsaved changes, so it would be, you know, showing me what I want. I mean it will be alerting the browser now, so it's reverting that the cancel one. It comes to the default functionality. So this is about the Apex page. I hope you got that. So going through this, a lot of things out there with various APIs, you can find it here, and we'll see that more and more on that, and with some examples in the next lecture.